Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Further Faster podcast. My name is Bede. I'm a partner and the Chief Commercial Officer here at Antler. Today I am joined by the founders of Upcover, Skye, Theodorou and Anish, Sinha. Upcover is ANZ's only digital native insurance broker which is focused on SMEs. They have access to over 40 insurers and underwriters across Australia, New Zealand, the UK and the US. They're trusted by more than 60,000 businesses and have extraordinarily a 4.9 out of 5 rating, which I don't think is a very common thing in the insurance industry. It's a real pleasure to be with both of you today. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Bede.
Thanks for having us, Bede.
It's great to be with you, and particularly to talk about the world's most sexy industry, the insurance industry. I don't think anybody has ever said that, by the way. But I think 2025 might be changing. If we look at the industry, both in terms of raw dollars and in the amount of comparative spend that has been done on the industry by venture capital historically, it's not sexy, and in fact, it's not even something that a lot of funds want to focus on. And I'd love to hear from you, Skye. You worked in insurance prior to building Upcover. What was the opportunity that you saw in this industry, and why did you choose to come and build in it?
Thanks, Bede. Good question to kick off. So I'm the CEO at Upcover and I'm a lawyer. I am extremely passionate about business owners and how you can help a business owner manage risk and be with them on their hard days. Insurance is just one aspect of that. So I did actually spend my career in insurance, working in litigated claims, distributing and building out products, putting them on broking platforms. But I really questioned how a product was manufactured and built and put and given to a customer. It's actually not really built thinking about a customer. It's actually built from an insurer's perspective. And I really wanted to challenge that model because it's an agent and broker intermediated solution, usually business insurance. And that's where I really felt that I wanted to distribute and change the way it was done. And I wanted a co-founder that had a background in e-commerce. I wanted to not have anyone in the business that was from the insurance industry other than me. And I felt that we needed to really change it dramatically to empower a business owner and help them get the information that they needed to empower them to get that right-sized in very simple and easy experience online, and to do that at scale. So that's literally what the whole idea around Upcover was.
Those were the kind of the precepts for getting into it. Did you have any reservations or any concerns about going and building an insurance, or has it just been kind of the industry that you chose, what you loved, and you thought that there was big opportunity?
I started in the insurance industry because as a lawyer, Bede, I felt I either go work top tier private practice or I try and be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. And that's where I chose to kind of focus on this area and do something different. I always was obsessed with business insurance and businesses specifically. And I did a thesis on it about business owners in Australia and the ANZ and how they make decisions in relation to emerging risks and trends. And that's where I started to really question SMEs and small to medium-sized businesses and whether or not it really is garbage in, garbage out, that which was in the academic literature, or if it's actually business owners just need the right information at the right time. And it's just empowering them to do that and to get access to that online.
So Anish, when you met Skye, obviously she had a vision and it was something that you thought was really appealing. Tell us about that early period of the company where you were trying to understand both the industry and what the opportunity was, and how you set about doing that, and what it was that how Skye convinced you that this was the right thing to do.
Yeah, so I came to Australia in 2019 and I was looking for a co-founder, and that's when we came to meet you and Ant, and we went through the Antler program. The challenge and problem I was looking to solve was one that was really large, where the customer experience was broken in an industry where there were enough and more problems to solve. And I like to say that in Australia, there are 3 sectors where you can build billion-dollar businesses: healthcare, payments, and insurance. And business insurance, particularly because it's heavily analog. And why is it heavily analog? Because it's complex underwriting. And so when I met Skye, who had spent her years at Zurich and largely in commercial insurance, I was convinced of the opportunity. I had been exposed to insurance during my MBA years, but then afterwards while working at Goldman. And it's always a sector that's I've been fascinated by, I didn't know much about, but speaking to Skye, I realized there were so many opportunities here for digitization, for improving customer experience, and for just delivering a better end-to-end buying journey for the end customer and founders as well, because now we sell to startups and scale-ups as well.
On that, right, I think the kernel in your answer just now is coming back to my original question about why has this industry received so little venture investment historically? I mean, particularly in Australia, but I think in other markets. Perhaps, Anish, you can talk about, on a comparative basis around the world, how have insurtechs kind of fared in the venture environment?
Yeah, so there have been a few phases of insurtechs. The first wave of insurtechs were largely within personal lines, so home and pets insurance and motor and travel. Commercial insurance is one of the most poorly understood insurance products and how it's manufactured. It's largely only understood by those who are part of the industry. If you look at the US market, there's about $900 billion in commercial insurance premiums that's transacted, about $120 billion in broker premiums that are paid, broker commissions that are paid out. And again, the workflows here are extremely complex. The underwriting is case by case. When you go from the small end of the town to the large end of the town, how the insurer evaluates the risk is completely different as well. So to build a playbook there where somebody could, where you could essentially build a digital journey starting with the smallest end of the town and then continue to grow the book. The reason investors haven't invested in this space as heavily, I think Australia hasn't had as much investment as the US. The US has definitely had more venture capital dollar gone in because there are real experts in the US who've stepped out of the industry and been a part of the venture ecosystem. But in Australia, that hasn't happened because there aren't as many people who understand the commercial insurance industry. And so a lot of this workflow sits in PDFs, emails. It's understood only by those who practice it, either by a broker or an underwriter. And not many investors understand what those workflows are. Hence, they don't quite realize. They know it's an opportunity, but they don't know how to solve for it or who are the people who would be solving for it because a lot of people don't leave the industry. It's so cushy.
I read recently, I think there's $400 billion in broker revenue annually in the US and about 130 billion of that is spent on essentially on manual tasks. And the kind of claim is that this makes up the reason why insurance is sexy or insurtech is sexy in 2025 because the scale of the opportunity for basically automating a lot of those workflows through AI is enormous. Anish, can you talk about what you're doing, how that has affected the way that you're planning and you're building the team at Upcover?
Insurance and commercial insurance broking at the large end of the town, even at the mid end of the town, involves a lot of professional services. It involves human brokers interacting with underwriters, exchanging information via PDFs, emails. There's so much rich risk data about a company that sits in those PDFs and emails that is never converted into a structured format, which then allows an underwriter to maybe price better or a broker to be able to quote and place the risk at a wider set of underwriters, because each of that effort has to be then replicated copy paste across the different insurers. And what we're doing at Upcover is essentially streamlining the broker ops. When we talk about the back end of the Upcover, we're trying to agentify it by empowering the specialists who are at Upcover, speaking to these companies, placing these risks, giving them teams of agents so they can effectively work across the segment, across industry with a range of businesses and help them get an insurance outcome that they would have typically not achieved with a traditional broker. And when you talk about the traditional broking market, it's massive. You have the Aons and the Marsh and the Gallaghers of the world, which are some of the largest brokers. But then you also have the small end of the town, the 1 or 2 man band, who are running these small brokerages. And when you think about how broking is done, commercial insurance broking, it's all pen and paper, PDFs, emails, back and forth with the industry time and time again, year on year, because insurance renews every year for every business.
Skye, do you think that you are in a kind of privileged position now, a few years into your journey, being able to respond adequately rather than having to build today in this environment? And how are you thinking about the way that you expand the business now that, to Anish's point, now you have the kind of capacity to automate a bunch of these workflows? What are you thinking about the ways to expand your business?
I think thinking deeply about where we want to expand, I mean, the small to medium-sized business segment is very broad. We like to go by niche and by very industry-specific sectors. Identifying those that are the best long-term customer for us and doing that at scale sequentially. So expanding that product base and then working with more insurance partners is really integral to ensure that we keep doing this at the rate of scale that we've been seeing so far. We want to consistently automate every part of the function and solving the whole life cycle of an insurance process. So that's quote, buying, renewal, payments, and then claims as well. The way we've been looking and thinking about the business so far and at the moment is looking at specialty complex underwriting and doing that as a broker at scale with those 40 insurance partners that you referred to earlier. An SME where we really believe in a one-to-one digital switchboard solution, which is really quick and easy for a business owner, but still fact-based and at scale for that very specific segment. And that's fact-based information at scale, not necessarily advice. And then we have a payments premium funding solution, which is digital, no loan application at all, to assist with high conversions, but also just ease of mind for cash flow management for businesses. And then we're also unpacking what is a very large segment in insurance globally, but motor fleet for businesses as well.
And which parts of the business to you, having come from old insurance and building a kind of a new version of insurance, which parts to you are the most reminiscent of where you came from, but more importantly, like what has been where do you think the biggest delta is in terms of change in what you're doing at Upcover?
I think we keep doubling down on where we see pockets of opportunity, and doing that at scale with a larger team is a real benefit to us. Unpacking with 6 agents that we're specifically honing in on throughout the different life cycles of the insurance process, it would be able to assist us in getting to that delta. Doing that with an insider knowledge of the insurance industry and respect of those, huge institutions that, underwrite and pay a lot of claims and have great reputations in the market is how it becomes possible. So I think continuing with that and, balancing out the fact that the insurance industry moves at a very glacial pace, and that means that we consistently have to move incredibly fast.
Anish, maybe you can talk a little bit about how the pair of you plus Sajad, your third co-founder, manage building and making driving that kind of evolution whilst also benefiting from and leveraging Skye's domain knowledge. How does that work as a leadership group? And how do you make the decisions about where to focus in terms of innovation versus where you need to kind of hew to maybe more historical ways of running an insurance business?
Yeah, so we try and be driven by the pull from the market. So if we are getting customers organically or customers referring other customers because we've realized there are pain points, that customers are not being serviced by their existing brokers or their existing insurance is insufficient, we try and be driven by that. And so one of the mantras we follow is do things that don't scale when you start out. So every customer is important. We try and understand what their pain points are because there are enough and more businesses that we can solve this for. There are 3 million businesses in Australia that buy between themselves about $20 billion in insurance. 95% of that is transacted offline through brokers. There are about 6,000 brokers in Australia, small and large. And so we don't have to win every single business. We have to go after segments, as Skye mentioned, which are niches, profitable, where the customer experience is broken, where we can deliver something that's unparalleled that other brokers cannot do. And the way we enable that is with Sajad building the tech, me being able to figure out how do we reverse engineer and automate as much of that as possible. And then Skye really providing the rails on what is compliant and what is not, because Sajad and I are both engineers. So we think like engineers, we say everything's possible because everything's possible in engineering. But because we build in a regulated market, we need to be respectful. And with insurers whose balance sheets we're operating on, we need to be respectful of how they build their businesses and what we can and cannot say.
It's a really great segue to speaking more generally about building a business in a regulated environment, because it's much trickier than building a startup in a place that will just tolerate piracy, which is in a large number of other industries, right? Skye, perhaps if you can talk about the very beginning, because I think that as both a lawyer and ex-insurance operator, you would have probably felt this more than most other people. You're kind of starting up in an industry that you know to be incredibly restricted and well regulated. How do you set up building a business in that sort of an industry, and what are the implications, or what is the mindset that you need to achieve to be both committed to the regulatory environment, but at the same time trying to radically change what's done inside the industry?
Well, Anish and I used to argue a lot. So I think being open-minded to how things can be done while knowing the way things have been done, because there's very strong ways of working within the insurance industry, and there's very strong respect to what you can do and what you cannot do as a broker or an underwriter or an underwriting agency, or within an insurer or a certain regulated market within a product. There's so many rules. I think thinking about the customer and really trying to get the best possible outcome and being true to that. We have often, with some of our solutions, you could probably describe a first mover type of advantage in the regulated market. So something that was helpful and continues to be helpful for anyone in a regulated segment and building tech is to just push past the many no's that you might receive about doing something that might be slightly different to the ordinary way to do it. I used to call it Simon Sinek's 5 whys. It's the 5 to 1,000 no's. Like, just get past every single roadblock, go day by day, and think deeply about the solution and the outcome that you want, and test consistently with customer. Even if it's regulated, you can still test without necessarily having the appropriate approval. We just do that on every single area that we want to transform in, and it's worked out really well for us. So things that we've been consistently told are not possible, we've been able to achieve. And then now we're getting to a size and achieving scale, we get people and other lawyers to double check some of those hypotheses and how we had thinking and advice around doing certain things. And also looking at other practices at place in the market. That's been helpful too.
One of the things that people watching this recording will not be able to tell from looking at you is how tough the pair of you are. Really, a pair of the toughest entrepreneurs that I have worked with. And so you've obviously been incredibly effective at dealing with the no's over the years. How do you manage your relationship together, Anish, and how do you also encourage your team when you are dealing with that? And again, we were talking before in the studio. I remember on my summer beach holiday picking up the phone from the pair of you guys, not sure how you were going to fight through, and I remember getting off the phone and wondering whether or not you'd still be there when I got back from holiday, and yet you just that actually was the very beginning of one of your biggest periods of growth in the company. How did you deal with that as a management team, and how do you kind of inspire your team in those tougher moments?
I think in the first couple of years, it's largely the co-founders and maybe a small team, right? So you're looking at every no as an opportunity. What can you learn from it? And a no could be an irreversible no, like you can't really get there because it's a hard no. You can't do it because the law doesn't permit you to. Or it could be a no because it's just a temporary no. You could still go down that path, but you probably need to optimize your acquisition funnels, or you probably need more capital to go down that path. And so we try and understand why those no's are occurring. In our industry, we like to say, you need to get past the 3 C's to be able to build a successful business: customers, capital, as in venture capital, and capacity capital. If you just have 2, then you don't have the 3rd, you can't really get to an outcome, which is to hit the market, distribute a product compliantly, deliver a financial services product in the hand of the customers. And so for us, we become accustomed to hearing no from the 3 corners, but then we've tried to understand how can we unlock it? What side of the equation can we move to be able to unlock that no? So if a customer is not coming on board, is it because we don't have an insurer? If the investor is not coming on board, is it because we don't have enough revenue momentum? Is the insurer not coming on board because we can't risk select properly and can't find the right cohort of customers? So really understanding where that noise is originating from, and then being able to hone in and say, okay, maybe this is why it's happening. It's a timing thing. It'll happen in 12 months' time. And it's played out like that. Insurers we pitched to back in 2020, we couldn't work with. They said, come back to us in 2023. And when you're a startup, like 3 years is a lifetime.
It's a lifetime.
And we got back to them in 2023 saying, hey, you asked us to come back in 2023. Can we now work together? So I think people come around to the fact that you're not giving up, you're not going away, and they'll have to deal with you one way or another. So the sooner you start to deal with us, the better it is.
This is one of the kind of features that I notice about the best founders is how they manage to take problems and effectively external problems often, right, and internalize them. In other words, they make it a problem that they can address, like what you were saying, where you try and analyze effectively the cause of the objection in order to say, okay, well, how are we going to navigate around this at some future point? When you operate as a team, Skye, and you have these setbacks, what is it that you do? How do you workshop? I mean, a big setback. Do you workshop it as a team? Like, what's your process for metabolizing it and then moving beyond it?
Everyone has their own work style. I can be a bit of a cynical realist or optimist at times.
Say it isn't so. Come on.
And Anish is definitely an optimist, but has a very process and methodical systems view of how he goes through and resolves a problem. I think both are helpful because we've now seen quite a bit in this business and particularly lived it as founders alongside, some of our earliest investors like Antler. Now we get to show our team and the leadership team that we've built how they can overcome these things because they're building those skills and attributes. The one thing that I found very awe-inspiring is the number of, management level team members that have such a level of ownership and an attitude like a founder in this business. And I feel that it needs so much from you that we've got people like that have that level of grit, tenacity, that want to see it through. So it makes sense and helps that we share some of those war stories, that we give that narrative, that they can get through it, that coaching that you gave us, that we give that back to them and kind of seed it forward. Everyone's been able to achieve and succeed and take a break when they need it because it is an ultra marathon, but it has been amazing to see a team thrive as we build and achieve beyond, Series A and beyond.
You used the phrase before with me, early believers, or, how you got some of those earliest team members on. Like, what, as a founder, do you think that there is a process or a methodology or something that you can pursue to get those first couple of hires? Because I think that I always think that the key capability of a great founder is that they can hire other exceptional people. How have you thought about it, or is it just turning on the charm and having it work?
I actually think, to be totally honest with you, Bede, I don't know how I convinced one person to join the business like Anish. And I sometimes am amazed that we've got, almost 50 people in the business across the world, 17 different cities, 11 different countries and growing. I am amazed. I felt very uncomfortable with the idea of selling and pushing this business and telling someone to quit a job and join this business that I was doing my darndest and we were doing our darndest, but, you don't know and have certainty. So trying to help remove the roadblocks to let someone join this business is important. We have a lot of people in this business and in our team that come from they're quite diverse. So, there might be a primary carer for someone, or, they have a very interesting health condition or challenging health condition that requires something from them, or they want to just change something dramatically about their lives, or they're seeing something different, or they're a primary contributor to their family and they're multi-generational. I think ensuring that they have, they know that they can have certainty in their role is really important. And being passionate about what we're passionate about, people have really, they've really dived right into this idea of, Upcover and how we are really transforming something for as many customers as possible. I specifically look for people that are interested and understand the compliance risk, that care about customers and they have tenacity and grit. That's I really, really, as Anish knows, that's something I'm very passionate about when I look for talent.
I love that. Just listening to your answer, the balance between the pair of you as founders, where again you in periods were not sure that it was going to be successful, but I knew for certain you would never give up. And Anish is obviously always the enormous optimist, and that kind of balance between you, I think, always comes to a great answer, because there's this kind of constant swinging pendulum between being thoughtful and careful and questioning everything you do, and also setting out a massive vision and really pursuing it. That I love that kind of tension in your team. One of the things that I know that you both believe was super successful, and obviously I disagree with to some extent, is having a fully distributed asynchronous team. I know that you both absolutely adore it and think it is a superpower. Anish, tell us a little bit about that and why it's been so important to Upcover.
I think if you go back to the origin story, Skye's not based in Sydney. She's based in Coffs Harbour. I came to Sydney as an immigrant, so I didn't go to school here. I didn't go to college here. So try and think of building a company in a new country where you don't know, you don't have networks, try and raise capital. And so it can either be a strength or a weakness. It can be a weakness if you look at it like that. I looked at it like, then maybe I can access the entire global pool, if not just the talent base in Australia, and also we couldn't afford. So this is also me justifying why we went global from day one. But there's exceptional talent everywhere in the world. There are not enough opportunities like there are in Australia for a lot of the folks in Kazakhstan or Italy or Pakistan or Sri Lanka, countries we've hired from. And we've just really honed in on all the attributes that Skye mentioned. We've grown the team to be largely distributed because we believe there is a certain kind of person who wants to be remote. They've already made that trade-off in life. For them, it's not about coming to the office, the perks of the office. They want to practice their craft. They want to be autonomous. They don't want to be told when to come into the office and when not to come to the office. They just want to be better at what they do and have minimum oversight, but also great feedback. And so how do you activate or find that person? And I wish there was a shortcut or a playbook. Like, it's largely just volume. Like, you email a whole bunch of people, some respond, some don't. And then you start unpicking what their motivations are for what they've done in their life so far. And so that's kind of how we build the team, one person at a time. And each person is hired for the job they do. And they've actively, again, as I said, made the trade-off of living with their parents or in a city that would typically not offer them those opportunities. And they've smashed it. Like, we have grown that team organically. We've also got a lot of people coming to us via referrals. So a lot of people have referred other people saying, hey, I went to school with this person, or this is my brother, would you like to hire them? So we get so many referrals of folks coming in. We like to not say Upcover is a family, it's like a sports team, but it really does seem like a family because everyone's referred the other person, and that's how we've grown the team to what it is today.
And Skye, what do you think is what's the common cultural thread? Like, how have you thought about building the culture within the company that, and what is it? What is it that everybody recognises as being part of Upcover?
That's a good question. It's not if I thought about when I started my business and Upcover and registered it, it's not what I thought the team would look like. I thought it would have to be Australian based. I thought that a fully distributed team wouldn't work. I remember we used to have conversations about it quite a few years ago, but we played out the hypothesis, and it was very true that there are like top 1% of talent globally. They are exceptional. They're driven, and they want to succeed and achieve really incredible outcomes. And that's what we want to do as a business. I think the culture, it starts with us, and it's molded by every single person that joins. At this point, with the leadership team that we have and the managers, it's a very careful moment because we are firing ourselves as founders from as many jobs as possible. And we're at this tipping point now where culture is quite a number of people. And the values that everyone has is very strong. It's almost a teary moment for me when we have a compliance training session. I know, look at me, the lawyer in this coming out, but 40 people out of 45 or 44 people join, and it's for over an hour. So engineers are involved. Everyone has got a questioning mind, and it kind of follows through that it's not just an interview cycle where we apply those same questions and ask more from people. We do that consistently, and we do that as we sync with team members, everything is async as well. So it's a constant living thing, this Upcover culture. And it's amazing. It's the best part of the business for me.
It's our second product. First is obviously insurance and tech.
I like that. There must be a shared vision though, Anish. What do you think it is? What is the vision that all of you are striving to achieve? And how have you set that out?
So there's a product vision and there's a culture vision. The product vision is to digitize the customer interaction with the industry as much as possible by building the plumbing that allows us to access some of the best insurers in the world and make those products available to customers at scale. And the way we do that is by obviously building our platform, enabling as many insurers and products to be available on the platform, and then enabling other brands to offer these products, including the Upcover brand, using the same plumbing to their business owner customers. And so that's largely on the product vision side. On the culture side, we want to continue to give people the opportunities to be able to do their best work possible. When you hire an engineer, you almost look at them as a craftsman or a craftswoman. They want to be able to practice their craft and do it in full autonomy. We want to give them the opportunity, enough problems to solve. That's what they get motivated by. Some of the more technical underwriters or specialist brokers that we're hiring, they want to be able to speak with customers and understand their pain points so they can then go back to the industry and really represent that risk and then bring that back so it's the best possible outcome for the customer. How do we continuously do that while still allowing people to be able to practice that craft, an underwriting craft or a broking craft or a customer success specialist? All of that needs to be enabled by technology if we have to do this at scale. So those are the two-pronged vision that we're trying to bring to life with Upcover.
You have to make a choice when you join this business. Everyone runs very, very hard and works a lot and is a perfectionist. They ask a lot from themselves and from the people around them, and it's not necessarily always a founder-driven thing. We try to get people to take a break and have a moment. And I think that's one important thing to continuing the success is that we continue to applaud and be very open and happy with the success that we continue to achieve, but we also sit back and, revel in it a little bit. And, we're hoping that we all get to meet. We've got to pick a city around the world that we will all meet at. And that was going to be sometime this year potentially, but it might be next.
Skye and Anish, thanks very much for taking the time today to tell us all about Upcover. A reminder, if you liked what you heard today, please click subscribe. We look forward to having you join us again.